We'll start this morning in the United States, where 12 days left in his term, President Donald Trump has finally acknowledged reality and said he will peacefully leave after Congress affirmed the defeat early yesterday morning. Trump led off a video from the White House by condemning violence carried out in his name on Wednesday at the Capitol. Then, for the first time on camera, he admitted his presidency will end soon, though he declined to mention President-elect Joe Biden by name or explicitly states that he lost. He told the supporters that their journey together had just begun.
I would like to begin by addressing the heinous attack on the United States Capitol. Like all Americans, I am outraged by the violence, lawlessness, and mayhem. I immediately deployed the National Guard and federal law enforcement to secure the building and expel the intruders. America is and must always be a nation of law and order. The demonstrators who infiltrated the Capitol have defiled the seat of American democracy. To those who engaged in the acts of violence and destruction, you do not represent our country. And to those who broke the law, you will pay. We have just been through an intense election and emotions are high. But now tempers must be cooled and calm restored. We must get on with the business of America. My campaign vigorously pursued every legal avenue to contest the election results. My only goal was to ensure the integrity of the vote. In so doing, I was fighting to defend American democracy. I continue to strongly believe that we must reform our election laws to verify the identity and eligibility of all voters and to ensure faith and confidence in all future elections. Now Congress has certified the results. A new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th. My focus now turns to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition of power. This moment calls for healing and reconciliation. 2020 has been a challenging time for our people. A menacing pandemic has upended the lives of our citizens, isolated millions in their homes, damaged our economy, and claimed countless lives. Defeating this pandemic and rebuilding the greatest economy on earth will require all of us working together. It will require a renewed emphasis on the civic values of patriotism, faith, charity, community, and family. We must revitalize the sacred bonds of love and loyalty that bind us together as one national family. To the citizens of our country, serving as your president has been the honor of my lifetime. And to all of my wonderful supporters, I know you are disappointed, but I also want you to know that our incredible journey is only just beginning. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
All right, with only 12 days left in Trump's presidency, Wednesday's assault by the mob of supporters in the name of President Trump at the U.S. Capitol has left the country reeling in shock, and allies and opponents of the President Trump are blaming him for provoking the action with his rhetoric, and now there are demands for him to be removed from office. Our Rise correspondent Carl Bostic has more.
Going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I love Pennsylvania Avenue. And we're going to the Capitol. And we're going to try and give, the Democrats are hopeless. They're never voting for anything. Not even one vote. But we're going to try and give our Republicans, the weak ones, because the strong ones don't need any of our help. We're going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country.
President Trump encouraging supporters to march to the Capitol, where the U.S. Senate is in session to certify votes from the election that will make Joe Biden the next president. Also encouraging them to challenge that vote from an election held 2 months ago that he continued to baselessly claim was stolen from him.
Stop the steal! Stop the steal! Stop the steal!
Those supporters rapidly turning into a mob that was beginning an assault on the U.S. Capitol.
You better run, cops! You better run!
They're getting into the Capitol tonight. They're getting in there.
Hundreds of people in the mob swarmed into the hallways of the U.S. Capitol, the seat of America's power, overwhelming the U.S. Capitol Police, who tried to prevent them from entering the chambers. A mob angry about an election they believe was stolen from Trump, defiant in their actions, despite the lies about election fraud that were told to provoke them. The mob more in control than the police, even taking time to give interviews.
Stop the steal! Stop the steal! Because they work for us. They don't get to steal it from us. They don't get to tell us we didn't see what we saw. The government did this to us. We were normal, good, law-abiding citizens, and you guys did this to us. We want our country back. We are protesting for our freedom right now. That's the difference.
Lawmakers suspending their vote to certify Joe Biden to instead seek cover and protection from a mob determined to stop the vote.
Where are we going?
Rayburn.
Rayburn?
On the ground.
Those that were able to escaping to secure locations beneath the Capitol. As the mob continued to pour into the Capitol, even vandalizing offices, President-elect Joe Biden delivers a warning to President Trump to take action.
I call on President Trump to go on national television now to fulfill his oath and defend the Constitution and demand an end to this siege.
It was nearly 2.5 hours before President Trump issued a statement that was mixed in its message, still just as concerned about his grievances over the election, while still urging the protesters to go home.
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt.
When the mob of protesters was finally evicted from the Capitol, it was after midnight when Vice President Pence resumed the Senate session to complete the certification of the election of Joe Biden.
The votes for President of the United States are as follows. Joseph R. Biden, Jr. of the state of Delaware has received 306 votes. Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 232 votes. The chair declares the joint session dissolved.
But 24 hours later, the damage had been done for Donald Trump and to the country. Even his closest allies condemning the assault and actions of the president, but stopping short of calling for his removal through the 25th Amendment.
That a band of people who are terrorists, not patriots, literally occupied the floor of the House, drove the Senate out of its chamber. There's been a constant effort by people from the president's legal team to provide misinformation, to distort the facts, to make accusations that cannot be proven. That needs to stop. As to the 25th Amendment being invoked, I do not believe that's appropriate at this point. I'm looking for a peaceful transfer of power.
But Democratic leaders like Chuck Schumer are more adamant that America is no longer safe from Donald Trump if he spends another day in office and should be removed immediately.
So I believe the president is dangerous and should not hold office one day longer. He may have only 13 days left as president, but yesterday demonstrated that each and every one of those days is a threat to democracy so long as he is in power. The quickest and most effective way to remove this president from office would be for the vice president to immediately invoke the 25th Amendment. The vice president can invoke the 25th Amendment today, and if the cabinet votes, he's gone. They should do it now.
Right, you can see all that has happened in Washington in 24 hours there. They're talking about the vice president invoking the 25th Amendment, and you can hear the speech by President Trump there. But actually, just for the sake of our viewers, President Trump lied. He didn't call on the National Guard. Vice President Mike Pence did call the National Guard. It has to be stated. Because a lot of lies. One too many at this one.
Just, weighing and striking the balance and the contrast, looking at that speech released yesterday, the video released yesterday, and the one released 24 hours earlier. Oh my goodness, what a departure in tone from what we saw earlier. His pitiful attempt at diffusing the situation, which he incited. I think yesterday's message was striking the right tone, talking about reconciliation, time to heal. But this is what was expected of the president earlier. Only if he had done this earlier, So is this too little? Is it too late? It is coming at a time when, you're right, Speaker Nancy Pelosi has said Vice President Mike Pence must invoke 25th Amendment. If he fails to do so, Congress will be forced, to start impeachment process. You recall that President Donald Trump is already an impeached president. So should this go ahead, what is the possibility that they can go through that process in 12 days? Would it be successful? Should it go ahead, he would then become the president who has been impeached twice in office. This will hang around his neck. Too little, too late? I guess for me, that is it. It's too little and it's too late.
Well, a number of issues. Number one, the 25th Amendment that everybody is referring to. Yes, you can give effect to the 25th Amendment within a space of just about 4 days. So within the 13 days or so that is left, yes, the president can be removed from office. The effect of the 25th Amendment will be that the vice president will step in as president while the president is removed. What the 25th Amendment requires is for the majority of cabinet members to say that they do not think that the president is in a fit and proper position to continue as president. Now, he has a right to challenge it. If he challenges it, then the matter goes to Congress. And then Congress votes. If you have a majority in Congress, then he's removed, and the vice president steps in. But some people are saying that, well, would that still be necessary within the few days left? But we listened to Senator Chuck Schumer saying that, look, every other day that President Trump spends in office, it poses a danger to American democracy. Now, Vice President Mike Pence is also on record as having said he does not intend to invoke the 25th Amendment. Obviously, he's not happy with the conduct of the president, but he doesn't want to go that far in the last moments of the administration. And it was on that basis that Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House of Representatives, is insisting that if the 25th Amendment is not invoked, then the House will have no option but to commence impeachment proceedings. And if impeachment proceedings are commenced, then, of course, he can again be impeached for the second time in the life of his administration. But what is clear to everybody is that that conciliatory, I promise you an orderly transition, backtracking that President Trump is now attempting, it's an acceptance of the realization that the game is up. Now, he says the attack on Capitol Hill was heinous, but he himself and his lawyer and his son, they initiated it in the first place. If those terrorists, domestic terrorists who attacked Congress, if they had succeeded, perhaps his tone would have been different. So what he's saying is completely hypocritical and dishonest, and I do not think that anybody is impressed. The popular opinion out there is that he needs to be held personally responsible for his conduct, for the assault on the integrity of American democracy. And it is in that regard that the Wall Street Journal has done an editorial saying that, in fact, President Trump should resign. That's the position of the Wall Street Journal in their editorial, because they insist that, his behavior is unacceptable in a civilized community, and that the leader of the civilized world, as they call America sometimes, cannot behave in the manner in which he has behaved. Kelly McEnany, that's the White House chief press secretary, also had issued a statement saying that what happened on Capitol Hill is the direct opposite of what the Trump administration is known for. That is not proven. What we know the Trump administration for is that it has been a lying administration, it has been a divisive administration, and that in its twilight, in its last moments, that administration has behaved in a very disgraceful manner. President Trump insists that he was trying to protect the integrity of the electoral process in America and draw attention to electoral reform. That's not what he was doing. He was trying to delegitimize a decision that has been reached by the American people. And now that the process has been exhausted, and he has seen that with all the cases that he took to court, with all the recounts that he asked for, with all the attempts to intimidate secretaries of state, attorney generals, and governors of states, all of that, failed. And so, he has seen very clearly that the game is up. So most bullies behave the way he behaves. But when the reality stares them in the face, they will have no option but to throw in the towel. We can only just hope that between now and the time that his administration leaves, if he's not impeached, if the 25th Amendment is not invoked, that he will continue to conduct himself in a responsible manner. He has seen the handwriting on the wall. If he has not seen it, that would be unfortunate. But from his tone, it looks like he has seen it. Already, the White House is being deserted. The Transportation Secretary, Ellen Chow, was the first to resign, followed now yesterday by Betsy DeVos, the Education Secretary. And these are long-serving members of his cabinet. The Deputy National Security Advisor has resigned. The White House Social Secretary has gone. Melania Trump's Chief of Staff has also left. Now, people are already being sanctioned. Nancy Pelosi has asked for the resignation of the Capitol Police Chief. He's expected to submit his resignation on June 16. The Sergeant at Arms in the House of Reps is also expected to submit his resignation for the failure of policing and security, on that unfortunate day when the Capitol Hill was stormed. Now, if those persons are going to be sanctioned, how about the man himself who initiated it? And it is in that regard that many Americans have been saying, even when President Trump leaves office on January 20, he should be made to account for various atrocities committed under his watch, both at the federal and at the state level. What happens thereafter remains to be seen, and a lot of that will depend on Mr. Biden. Can you imagine Trump now talking about healing, about reconciliation? Yes. Now, those phrases do not belong in his mouth. Yes. But he's talking about reconciliation and healing. The job of healing and reconciliation has been assigned to another person. His place has been taken by another, and there is a new reality in the United States.
Okay, I'll have a lot to sound off on this, but we have to go to the last story. The federal government yesterday listed President Muhammadu Buhari, Vice President Yemi Osinbanjo, as Secretary to the Government of Federation Boss Mustafa among the first set of Nigerians to be administered the COVID-19 vaccines when the country takes delivery of the first batch by the end of the month. Executive Director, National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Dr. Faisal Shoaib, made this known at a weekly press briefing of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. He said their vaccination will be televised to inspire public confidence in the safety of the vaccines. According to Dr. Shoaib, Nigeria was hoping to get 42 million COVID-19 vaccines to cover 1/5 of the population through the COVAX scheme. He explained that initial vaccines will come as part of Nigeria's plan to inoculate 40% of its population this year and another 30% in 2022, with a shipment of 100,000 doses of the Pfizer vaccine due to arrive by the end of the month. So, the leaders are getting this first, the first jab. What's your take?
I don't see anything wrong in that. It's something we've seen across the world. But let me give a bit of background to this. Despite the availability of safe and effective vaccines, Nigeria accounts for some of the most unimmunized children in the world. And there are a lot of factors that contribute to that. Availability of vaccines, mates, tradition, culture, religion. So there's hesitancy. But immunizing children, which is a sliver of your population, a sliver of fraction of your population, is different from immunizing your entire population. So I think that based on what we know on vaccination of children against preventable diseases, we can assume, while we are waiting for the Primary Healthcare Development Agency to carry out its vaccine hesitancy survey, we can assume from what we have in the country that there would be hesitancy, a high level of hesitancy to COVID-19 vaccinations, especially with the conspiracy theories, the political religious leaders not helping matters with misinformation. So if we have leaders like the president, the vice president, lining up to take this jab first, I think that will help with the hesitancy.
Dr. Latif?
Well, this is the second time that Dr. Faisal Shoaib, the head of the NPDHA, is speaking up. And I think it's, a welcome development, because previously we were hearing what the Primary Healthcare Development Agency was doing from other people. Now the body that is in charge of vaccination, its immunization itself, is speaking up. Now he had made this point like 2 days ago. He's just restating it. The first time he talked about this, he said the people that will be treated will include strategic national leadership.
That was vague.
And we were concerned at the time that if the first consignment of doses, Pfizer vaccine doses that we'll receive will be about 100,000. That 100,000 doses alone could go, into the vaccination of, strategic national leadership, which we were imagining will include their friends and their family members. And we said the objective should be, to cover the people, the vulnerable, frontline health workers. But if what they mean by strategic national leadership is that the president, the vice president, the chairman of the presidential task force should show example and build confidence and inspire confidence, that is not anything to quarrel about. My only concern is that yesterday, the Ministry of Health was saying the vaccines may not arrive soon enough.
Yes.
And that's where the concern is. When will those vaccines arrive?
All right, that's all. On News Headlines, we'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Michael Wilson and the team at this Omarua, Aaron Akerja will talk about global business, sports, COVID-19 and everything. Just stay with us. It's a packed package for you in the morning. All right, welcome back to the Morning Show right here on the Rise News channel. It's time to talk to Michael Wilson all the way in Duma, in England, I should say. Michael, great to have you. Good morning.
Morning. You must have been talking to the markets overnight, you lot, because they've absolutely agreed with your view that what's the point of impeachment right now in these final days? Yeah. Financial markets have hitched themselves to the stimulus train in lots of ways, helped by President Trump promising an orderly transition from power. So therefore, equity markets gained, oil gained, and Bitcoin, now get this, up to $40,000 per digital coin. I'll come on to that slightly later on. As far as Asian markets are concerned, now some interesting stuff here. Yes, I'll grant you that Japan did quite well, but it was up about 1.5%. The Kospi as well up 2%. But mainland China is the notable exception today. The delisting of 3 China telco giants from US exchanges, and that's hit tracker indexes. Also, now this is really important, government order to censor information on the government's antitrust probe of Alibaba. That's eroded sentiment, as has the US's ongoing action to block several China payment apps. Tycoon Jack Ma has, owning Alibaba, and also remember the shenanigans about him trying to float Ant Financial in the face of Chinese authorities. He's more or less disappeared from view. I don't think there's anything sinister about that. I just think he's not actually coming public on these kind of things. Shanghai Composite down by about 0.5%, and Hong Kong seems to have shrugged off those kind of woes, up 1.25%. But these are fundamental things going on there. US market caution. I'm going to a blue wave of debt-fueled fiscal infrastructure and environment stimulus. It's not a done deal, actually. Don't forget that equity doesn't make any difference to the commodity markets and the equity markets right now. But if yields keep rising, it might be that currency and precious metals felt this could lead to a stop on this kind of buy everything mood that's happening in the United States. And remember, we have an FOMC meeting at the end of January. I feel as though that will be crucial, given what the jobs figures were telling us yesterday. A little bit more on that. So just recapping then, Wall Street, swept with this kind of stimulus mania as the Democrats completed their governmental clean sweep. NASDAQ up 2.5%. Dow Jones up over 0.5%. Futures on the main US indexes continue to be up there. As far as manufacturing is concerned globally, again, a nice little snippet here. A chip shortage is hitting global car makers. What happened was that global car makers at the beginning of the pandemic stopped production completely. Now they've risen it up again, they've drawn it up again, and they've spiked it up again. And they've found that the software chip manufacturers have actually been favouring smartphones and gaming devices. So there's a bit of a hiatus as far as automakers actually climbing up to get their production figures back to post-pandemic levels. Boeing has agreed to the conspiracy payout there. You remember about the 737 MAX planes. It's agreed to pay $2.5 billion to settle U.S. criminal charges that it hid information from U.S. safety. It's U.S. safety officials, and the U.S. Justice Department said about Boeing it had chosen profit over candor, impeding the oversight of the planes. That involved 2 deadly crashes, as you know. About $500 million will go to the families of those people affected by that. Elon Musk is now the world's richest person. Tesla actually got its game in order, produced consistent profits. His personal fortune has now hit £188 billion. That's quite a lot of money. Meanwhile, Bill Gates, another rich man, may join forces with Blackstone to make a £3 billion offer for Signature Aviation that provides services to private jet owners. Can't help feeling that people like Elon Musk and maybe the rest of them will probably be using these planes. So that will be quite a growing market. As far as the UK is concerned, the usual post-Brexit worries about delays and so on. Price rises too. Retailers are concerned that new trade barriers getting in the way of last month's trade deal with the EU. Many traders now believe they're actually paying taxes on exports and imports of certain types of food which are not fully made in Britain but come into Britain and then are sold outside. They're also struggling with new paperwork. But a brighter note, 58% of finance bosses are optimistic as businesses prepare for fundamental change. Maybe they'll become more profitable. I suspect what that might mean is that they lay off further people, but we'll see about that. I hope not, but you never know. Commodities, as I said, oil markets relatively firm. They're still digesting Saudi Arabia's unilateral decision to cut production. Gold nervously above $1,900 an ounce, but it's not getting to that 2,000 level yet. And as far as the day ahead's concerned, the all-important jobs figures in the United States, several forecasters have lifted the expectations above the 70,000 jobs added. So maybe there's a patchwork of coming back to normal in the United States. But as I say, this will have no effect on the markets whatsoever. They've still got their eyes on that stimulus payment happening. They've still got their eyes on this bright new page turning over as they seem to think this will happen. And the Democrats' quick, clean sweep is actually helping everything. That's your global view.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Michael. Real quickly, I want to, just beam the searchlight on a country called Turkey, Michael. Amidst the coronavirus and everything, Turkey's GDP still remained at about 6.9%. There was still a lot of growth and bustling energy in the Turkish economy. In fact, it did better than the Chinese economy when you check the numbers. What can we learn from Turkey? What can also the world learn from Israel? Because life looks as though things will tamper down very soon in Israel. They've gotten it right. 16% of the population vaccinated already. A very high logistical network. Countries like France is still struggling. In fact, President Macron's incompetence as regards vaccination is shocking, for the French people. It's sort of like some level of dégagisme for the French people. What's your take on these two subjects?
My take is it's interesting you mention Israel. I would have thrown Bahrain in that as well. They've achieved a huge percentage of vaccinations as well. Bahrain is a complete autocracy. Israel, well, all the citizens there tend to pull together, don't they? It's a very, very tightly knit community of people destined for survival. They fight off threats all the time and so on. I can quite understand that they have adopted massive vaccination practices. As far as France is concerned, they have a very high proportion of people who do not want to have vaccinations. I think they've achieved about 632 vaccinations. That was the figure yesterday. It might have increased slightly overnight. Rather weirdly, the UK is right up there per capita, getting the highest level of vaccinations to people. You touched on a very interesting subject in the early part of your program I was watching this morning, when you saw that your high-level politicians have accepted vaccinations. Is that what you do? Or do you actually apply it, as you were also questioning, to people who don't quite earn as much and not quite as high profile as your top politicians to say to the rest of the population, hey, it's safe, it's about time we did this. Turkey, we will have a unilateral trade agreement with Turkey. It has been agreed. The details of it still to come. Turkey is this strange, very, very high-level manufacturing nation. It makes goods very, very cheaply. Unfortunately, the EU, it borders the EU, obviously. It's in between the so-called East and the EU. It's a moderate Islam country. It makes huge manufacturing. It's very, very clever at what it does. The EU has said over the years, it's said that because of its human rights issues, it will not allow it to join the EU. Cynics like myself would say that's one reason. The other reason is that they don't want a massive country like Turkey. It's absolutely huge country. If you have a look on the map, I bet that many of your viewers don't even know where it is. Not being rude, same in the UK. We go there for our holidays. It's a huge place, and the EU does not want that kind of competition. I have to say, selfishly, I do object to the human rights issues that the country actually clearly has. But in cold-blooded terms of trade, I think it's a good idea to be involved with Turkey.
Well, I don't think we still have enough time. I would have loved to ask you about Elon Musk and also about the clampdown on mobile payment applications, Chinese mobile payment applications, and also the Chinese telecom companies on the stock.
Very, very interesting subjects, Doctor.
Yes.
I look forward to talking to you about that next week if it's still in the news.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. For update on COVID-19 pandemic, obviously, Adesso Amora, over to you.
Thank you very much. With new variant rampaging, Europe is at a tipping point, crossing the 25 million mark for infections. America is also dealing with record number infections and deaths. Latin America, like Africa, waiting in the wings for vaccine, is turning in some record numbers. And in Asia, as well as some parts of Africa, leaders are making tough decisions to lock down to curb rising cases. For some, it's back to square one, where it all began with lockdowns and restriction. But let's come to Nigeria now, where the country has now tested a little over 1 million of its population, according to the statistics by the NCDC. We have now tested over 1 million people, and records show that our test per million is at 4,695, while our test positivity rate is at 9.6%. Our case fatality rate has increased to 3%. The country is, however, not considering lockdown measures despite the rising coronavirus infections. Yesterday, we turned in some record numbers again, and the PTF chairman, who is also the secretary to the government of the Federation, expressed worry over the increasing numbers we are seeing in Nigeria. He is attributing complacency on the part of the citizens, and his message to Nigerians is that it is better to wear a mask than being on a ventilator. And I think that's a very profound message. You rather wear a mask than being on a ventilator, especially now that we are even battling with oxygen. And to another story that concerns us directly as journalists. Over 600 journalists have died of COVID-19 since 1st of March 2020. And that's according to a Geneva-based press freedom organization called the Press Emblem Campaign. Now, the organization is founded by a group of journalists from several countries across the globe. And they are now saying that journalists should be treated as frontline workers and be given priority vaccination. Although it says it's not possible to differentiate between journalists who became infected at work and those who got infected in their private lives. But he's stressing that because not all journalists can work from home, they are exposed and they are vulnerable. A breakdown of the 602 deaths shows that Latin America comes first with more than 303 deaths. Asia follows with 145 deaths, Europe 94 deaths, North America 32 deaths, and in Africa, unfortunately, we have also lost 28 journalists to COVID-19 since March last year. Finally, South Africa is set to vaccinate 40 million people, or 2/3 of its population, against COVID-19. According to the health minister, 1.5 million doses of Pfizer AstraZeneca vaccines would be spread across January and February.
Well, let me go back to Nigeria. I made a point that yesterday at the briefing, the Ministry of Health was represented by one of the directors. And he was saying that the vaccines that we are expecting, first the 100,000 doses of Pfizer vaccine coming through COVAX facility, and then we're told that after that 42 million doses would follow, and that those 42 million doses will cover about 20% of the population. And then we still need to get money and order for 165 million, Nigerians. Now, the gentleman who was part of the briefing yesterday said that may not happen again in January. We need to have information. We need to have clarity. Government needs to carry us along for us to know how we're making progress. If we're not going to get it in January, when are we going to get the first doses? What other arrangements have we made? With who? Where? How much? What efforts to get the money? But I'm told we should go on break. When we return, the conversation will continue. We'll be right back. Stay the Morning Show. Welcome back to the Morning Show here on the Arise News channel. Well, Adesua, as I was saying before we went on break, so we need a lot of information. It's not enough to just say the strategic national leadership will take the vaccines first. Okay, when will those vaccines arrive? When will those vaccines get to us? What are the arrangements that have been made, right? We need to know all of that because as we have seen, many of our leaders, apart from the ones they say will take it first to bolster confidence, look, the rich in Nigeria, they are in a position to travel to Dubai to go and get the vaccine. Yeah. Many rich members of our community who have dual citizenship, they can go to the UK, they can go to the US, but the vulnerable people of Nigeria, those of us who are here, what is the plan for us? All of that, those details need to be out there. I know government is talking about investing more in communication to address vaccine hesitancy. Well, the best way they can address vaccine hesitancy and build confidence is to show the people that something really concrete is on ground, is being done, and that results will be achieved. It's not enough to just tell us the vaccines may not arrive on time. So if they will not arrive in January, when are they going to arrive? What are the plans in place? That's one. Second, we're told that Concedes is now providing 100,000, oxygen cylinders per day. Concedes, I think, again, should be commended. Governor Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State met with the president yesterday, and he said the major challenge in Lagos, which is the epicenter of the pandemic, is having issues with oxygen. Yes. Lagos wants to set up oxygen plants. Well, not just Lagos, any other state, should be supported as quickly as possible by the federal government. We're told that the president has approved that 5 plants, oxygen plants, be rehabilitated across the country, and that new oxygen plants, 1 per state, should be quickly set up. Well, all of that should not be delayed by bureaucracy because it's an emergency. Nigerians not listening to observe the basic protocols, the numbers are going up. And even if you look at the numbers quoted by Boss Mustafa, it still shows that we are not doing enough testing. We are not doing enough contact tracing. If we're saying, okay, fatality rate is 3%, and then, tests per million is just about 4,000 per million. That's still very low number. However, the other challenge has to do with this new variant that has come up. The United Kingdom yesterday rolled out the names of 11 countries in Africa from where flights to the UK have been banned. And these are countries that are around South Africa, Eswatini, Zambia, Angola, Namibia, all the countries within that axis, about 11 of them, they've been banned from entering the UK because the UK itself is still trying to find an answer to how to deal with the mutant variant. Yes. Now, what is Nigeria doing? Are we still allowing flights from South Africa? Are we allowing flights from Namibia? Are we allowing flights from, Eswatini? So Nigeria should learn from these other jurisdictions because if the UK is reluctant to admit people from the southern axis, Nigeria cannot open its doors, you know, under the excuse that we don't want to lock down, we don't want to lock down. People from Southern Africa, they can stay away for some time while we try to manage our own crisis at home.
Okay. I mean, well said, but we don't have time. We need to go. But I just want to say this real quickly. I think the approach of saying giving strategic political leaders the vaccine fed, I think it's a wrong approach and it will not work. I'll give you my reasons. The people you need to, you know, talk to as regards this vaccine hesitancy are people in the lower class. I want a case where people in the lower class are randomly called forward to take these vaccines, people from the lower crunch of Nigerian society. Because if you give people in the upper class, the people in the lower class would think the vaccine is an elitist thing. And most of them, when you interact with them in the lower class, they really argue with you that coronavirus is an elitist disease. So that giving also the elites the vaccine for the virus is just to show those in the lower class that it's an elitist thing all over again. So I think pick people from the lower class, from the crunks of society, to first be headliners to take those vaccines. And that's what will crack it. But we need to go on sports.
Maybe we can have volunteers.
Across classes, yeah.